Keith?
Yes.
I thought about voice swapping you to a female voice.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about putting like a glam filter on you.
Sure.
And I decided ultimately the best idea for our teaser.
Mm-hmm. Discretion.
Maturity.
I mean, we're famous for it, right? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Today, I feel like in season 6, I say it a lot. We're here. I can't believe we've finally arrived here. And for almost all of Deep Space Nine season 6, it's been this phenomenal, earth-shattering, genre-defining episode. And now it's, folks, we're going to talk about Profit and Lace.
Mm-hmm.
This is one that I personally have been like, oh boy, what are we going to say about this episode? I'm curious. I don't know what we're going to say about this episode, but we're here, and I'm sure that folks will be curious about how, Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
So it was a little tongue-in-cheek with our intro there, but also not. I think society, now there will be disagreements, but I think as a whole, our society has been, even though it's being sort of silenced currently, has been right to call out white male privilege and its detriment to society and how it's long overdue that we kind of take a hard look at it. And then there's us, right? Who, as much as I'd like to consider us progressive and allies, we don't ever skirt around the fact that we are two white guys shouting to the void.
Yep, for sure.
Cis, heteronormative, I mean, like the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that up front. That's where we're coming from. So, as I was watching the watch along last night, I found myself catching the words trippingly upon the tongue, and
I'd love to watch how uncomfortable.
Just like really considering what I think I want to say, and then not saying a lot of it till I could like process for the past 24 hours. And in those 24 hours, we already got our first comment on the watch along from a patron who had what I would expect to be the majority type reaction to this episode. And so, what I'd like to say up front on the internet is that I think what I think I owe, is to be frankly honest with how I feel about the episode, and then we can invite the dialogue to tell me if that's wrong.
Wow. I mean,
10 out of 10 no notes. Love this episode.
That is like, is that equivocation or a filibuster? I don't know.
Well, we're about to find out. Well, the next 90 minutes that was the shortest episode they ever did.
Oh my God, it's so weird. And credits. Yeah. Well, I think what we will try to do is the same thing the episode did. Have the right intentions and try not to execute it abysmally. And I think that because look, intent and execution are two separate categories.
Not only that, I don't think you can say the episode, right? Because what we tend to do here is also discuss performances, and so there are intentions from a lot of different people.
It's really complex.
Yes, and so I think, hopefully we can paint some of that tapestry.
And part of where this episode goes wrong is that if everybody is pulling in a slightly different direction and trying to do a different thing, it doesn't end up going super well.
That's not to say it wouldn't have been funny for us to do this in drag. I
mean, sure.
A sight gag at the very least.
That's what the episode was trying to be. But
I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, half of the episode was trying to be that, and half the episode was not. And we're going to get into it. So Profit and Lace coming up soon, but we have to talk about last week's episode, Valiant, with our patrons here. And here is what our patrons had to say. Mike, if people want me to read their stuff, or if people want to send me a voice message to be read, to be not even read, I love that idea so much better. How can they do that?
Well, Keith, that reminds me of two things. Number one, I have to make a note to put the subtitles of the voice message in the on the screen, because I think that would be helpful, and I think my program can do that. So I'll try to remember to do that. If not, I guess you can use the auto-generated subs down there,
which are remarkable these days.
But if you want to write or talk at us, you can do so at look at my Star Trek toys at gmail.com or Keith and Mike Entertainment at gmail.com. Long form.
One of us checks one of us checks the other. So we'll find out which one of us actually
checked it. And if you write to
K&M
still at gmail.com, somehow it got to me, so that's good.
I'm definitely not logged into that.
Or we would appreciate if you would go over to patreon.com/KNM. Do you know you can join as a free member? Did you know, though, if you just bump up to that $1 level, of which we get like 18 cents, you can...
18 cents a month is what gets...
You can get all of the content. And listen...
Split two ways, mind you.
Yes. Let me actually, for a minute, remove my tongue-in-cheekedness. As we had it... Listen, I get it. Even $1 adds up when you got a bunch of crap and a bunch of things you're paying up. I totally get it. If for some reason you are in a space where you don't have that $1, but you want to do the watch-alongs with me, write us an email. We got things we can take care of. If for some reason you have the ability to donate more to the show at K&M, patreon.com/KNM, we do appreciate it. It does help Keith and I offset some of the costs.
Are you an oligarch? Then reach out to me directly, because we'll take all the zeros.
Oh yeah, blood money is totally cool. Any money really at this point. Y'all know what I'm saying. Happy tax month. Patreon.com/KNM. Remember when I said it would be a short episode this week? I was kidding. I'm just talking.
Yeah. Well. There you go. So here is what you had to say about Valiant, starting with Joshua Cronin, who says, I don't much care for this episode. I think Red Squad is a bunch of pompous kids that think they're better than the others. I don't feel Nog would have followed this group like he did. He's smarter. Even though Starfleet is a dream of his, I think what happened in the end was deserved for thinking they could take on a Jem'Hadar warship. I enjoy your guys' views, so it gives a little more credibility to me, but... Going with 69 self-sealing stem bolts.
I think that's fair. That was the. Hey, can you help me with something, Keith?
Yeah.
You know, like there's the meme now. Sorry, I'm old, so excuse me. You know, there's a meme.
I can't help you with that, buddy.
That it's like the TDLR or something of something. It's like the summary of it. Do you know what that stands for?
I don't think I've even heard it.
People are like, oh, what's the TDLR, the TDRL, or something like that, and
The TRL? I'm old enough to know what that is.
Carson Daly, just tell me what I should think.
Carson Daly, just sum it up for
somebody
me.
out there, correct the meme I was trying to say, and then define it for us. Thank you so much. Anyway, the summary of what Josh was saying there is, I think, what we kind of came to the conclusion of.
The TRL?
Yeah.
The Carson Daly of what he was,
yes.
What we were saying.
The CD. Actually, that's less letters, so let's go with CD.
The compact disc, yeah. Fair enough.
Anyway, yeah, pompous, deserved to die.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, they were like the jocks in high school. That's sort of like what the Red Squad is. It's like the unfriendly jocks. There were some friendly ones. Anyway, Brian from Video Game Drive-By says, I have been a fan of this episode for a long time, but it wasn't
Keith.
until I... Oh, Jesus.
Instant gratification. A quick Google has helped me, rather than just asking for people to tell me things.
Like a week later, you won't remember that you asked for it.
Yeah. In internet slang, TLDR stands for too long didn't read, which is the perfect thing for me. I think I was right to think that was for me.
TLDL is how I deal with our show.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Brian from Video Game Drive-By attempts to say, I've been a fan of this episode for a long time, but it wasn't until I left religion that this episode actually clicked for me. I'd been brought to various churches by several friends growing up, and I have felt like Jake at many times. As did I. Nog slowly losing his grip on logic to fall in line with groupthink actually pings off my memories of my aunt that fell in with more than one cult in her lifetime. Ooh, interesting. This episode has some good callbacks to previous adventures, but some of the acting was a bit over the top, especially First Officer Karen. But at the end of it all, I thoroughly believe these children would easily fall under the sway of the captain. He's basically Kirk from the Kelvin films, tossed into the captain's chair without the needed experiences and losses to truly make you understand the gravity of the big chair. 85 needlessly self-sacrificing stem bolts. Yeah, good, very good point. And Jason's going to agree. Jason Moe says, this episode makes me eager for the Nacelle Company's second wave of Star Trek action figures. Ensign Nog. I think that's everybody's most excited. I maybe we'll ask Brian what he expects the number one seller in that line to be. I think Ensign Nog's got a shot. I love that Mike mentioned
100%.
how Captain Waters reminded him of a young James Kirk, because I remember reading in an interview where the writer specifically stated that Waters was very intentionally meant to be sort of a commentary on Kirk. Now, let it be known that I freaking love Captain Kirk. On the other hand, I absolutely cannot stand Chris Pine's Captain Kirk in the recent films. I think Chris Pine was basically just portraying Chris Pine and does a terrible job playing anything resembling the Kirk that I admire. As Brian from Video Game Drive-By rightly pointed out elsewhere in the comments, in the Deep Space Nine episode, Captain Waters is very much channeling a Chris Pine-ish version of Kirk. And this story lays out the disastrous consequences that would surely result in that type of captaining. If the cadets had simply learned their lesson at the end and gone their merry way, this episode would have been a bit pedestrian. But as Keith alluded, the fact that Deep Space Nine actually went there and killed them all off for their hubris that packs a punch and really elevates this one for me. Not to mention, it featured the acting debuts of a young Kelly Clarkson, and also of a young Marco Rubio as Waters. 92 stem bolts. You know, little Marco and his buddies definitely setting us up for a pretty similar ending to Valiant. So keep your butts. Ryan Chesley says Red Squad is the friggin' worst. It was a little surprising that Nog joined the group so quickly. And there's only so much time to move the plot along. Not my favorite episode, but seeing Red Squad eat dust was extremely satisfying.
What I think, though, about Nog joining, and even though that was my criticism as well, is that I think that his eagerness to join was portrayed. There was an equivalency in his portrayal of his disappointment in the outcome and in himself, his role in the outcome at the end. So those things did balance, which I think Aaron did a wonderful job about. And so you do get the vibe that that will weigh on him. You know, like O'Brien, every time he goes through one of these like crazy traumas or crises, the next episode is just like, nah, okay.
I'm good.
Whereas Nog, it does feel as though that will become part of his fabric of the character moving forward.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. And I think we all forget, because we love Nog so much, how young he still is.
Yeah.
And how, especially when you're in your late teens, I remember feeling this way. I was in the very bought in time in my life before I became sort of jaded and like nothing is real. I was like, everything is real. I'm bought in, I'm invested, because and you're sort of, it's your dreams, right? You're naive, right? It's like you book your first Broadway show and you just refuse to see the fact that it's terrible.
You know, that's an interesting part of life you bring up. First of all, that scale's a little difficult because you forget how old they are sometimes, because Aaron's a little older, he's in the makeup, and Jake is 7 feet tall. So it's hard to really remember their age. And then, God, it was so long ago, remembering that age myself is difficult. But as Keith mentioned, you know, a lot of people just dismiss it as, oh, there's this feeling, Red Squad is this way, that feeling of invincibility, indestructibility. But that doesn't come from just hubris, right? We are all the epicenter of our stories. And at that age, as Keith just mentioned, it's not a matter of I'm chasing my dreams. It's more a waiting game.
It's inevitable.
In pursuit of achieving those dreams. Like, that's about to happen any second. And it's not till you live life a little bit. Yeah. You
feel invincible in lots of different ways. A, you have all the time in the world to make your dreams come true. 2, you haven't, many have not faced like failure yet. 3, you're freaking 20 years old. You
Right.
are physically invincible.
Mhm.
And
and also, right? I mean, I'm letting them off a hook a little bit here, but you know, Keith and I, we did a tour together, and it was like, looking back, it's easy to be like, okay, that was like a low level thing that maybe our time would have been better spent staying in the city and auditioning for other. Like, you could make that argument. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying you could, right? But at the time, because of where we were in life and where we were we were like, oh, this is the first step to get the thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. And for Red Squad, imagine if your dreams are to be head this, head that, and then someone is like, the captain dies serendipitously. He gives me the thing. There's this ship over there. Clearly, this is lining up.
I've got to go on for Valjean.
Yeah, I gotta do it now.
I gotta step up.
It might be like scabbing at a non-equity summer camp, right? Like Jewish summer camp, and I'm not Jewish, but yeah, I'm gonna do it.
It couldn't have been scabbing because we had never been offered our
we didn't even know what it was
yet.
Yeah. So my point is that I think the intentions at the start of the Red Squad mission, despite how we see they're presented, probably made sense. But 9 months in,
yeah,
you probably should be like, we should probably tell somebody.
Well, they should have. Well, they went around telling all their friends, "Oh, I'm on the Broadway tour." No, you're not,
dude. They used to put it on the poster, Keith.
It's
that main tour was like the Broadway National
Tour. The Broadway
Tour
National. No, it was not. Remember that one venue?
The Play-Doh says it.
Yeah, remember one venue like put fake credits in everybody's bios?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, they were on Broadway, and we're like, no, it wasn't. What the hell is this?
For one of the fake cruise groups, I shouldn't say fake, it's real, but one of the cruise, like their whole premise, the way they book these acts is like, oh, Broadway performers. And there's always one in the cast that has done a bunch. But at the end of the show, one of our favorite things to do when like our lead boss guy wasn't there was to just, when we get to the end of the show, make up fake credits for everybody, but we didn't dare, at least I wouldn't dare say I was in Dear Evan Hansen or whatever. So I would make up fake Broadway shows for people to say they were in. I was like starring as Peppa in the national tour of the Broadway's Peppa Pig music. Like I would go for it. Oh, it was my favorite thing to do.
Oh, chaos. Anyway, Hibernation Pod says, for a moment, I once believed there were castles in the cloud, but I cannot remember where I got that idea from, Mike.
Sailing!
No.
Fever!
No.
Okay.
Listen again. For a moment, I once believed there were castles in the cloud, but I cannot remember where I got that idea from.
Castles in the... I have no idea.
Dude!
What are we talking about?
There is a castle on a cloud.
Okay. I didn't know how the context of that into what we're talking. That's
what. But he didn't remember where he knew the phrase "castles in the cloud." Oh, you just failed musical theater, buddy.
Trust me, Keith. That failed that test many years ago.
The fact that we're here on the show proves it.
It's like taking my mom to renew her license. Trust me, we've already failed.
Hibernation continues. The person I am now would have been like Jake in this scenario, but I cannot say at the time if it were 10 years ago or more. I cannot say I could not say the same if it were 10 years ago or more. The whole "we can do anything" screams loud and clear that they do anything to achieve their goals no matter the cost. They don't want to be evil, but still do something horrible that leads to their deaths. Nog's final words to Collins have always stuck with me since I first saw this episode, when new. I have often thought about them when I needed to check myself. It didn't always answer me when I needed them to, but sometimes it did. 70 self-sealing stem balls. But that is not the end of what Hibernation Pod has contributed, because last week you posited that perhaps, what if people sent voice messages?
Mm-hmm.
So to cut down on my bastardized reading, and guess what?
He gets me first. Everyone, there has to be a first.
Put his money where his mouth was, and sent us the first test clip.
Testing out my brand new microphone. I am totally new at this, and this feels really weird. Let me know how it sounds. Really love your podcast. Keep it going.
Sounds great. There it is. Boom. There it is. So folks, definitely send your voice messages to me to play on air. Now, with a caveat, It had to be less than a minute long.
Mm-hmm. That was great. That was a great length.
That was perfect.
Microphone sounds good, by the way.
Chef's kiss, perfect message. Because we got some treatises back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But
there's another caveat, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for my pin in that.
Okay. But it's not the only one we got.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we heard from the mysterious household. Mysterious Ann sends this.
Just kidding. Keith, filibuster just for a moment because I've muted the track and it's got to play through before I can start it again.
You've got to play all the way through. All right. Yeah. Well, folks, if you have a lot of caveats, go see a dentist.
Speaking of, I believe I have a cavity right now. It's maybe my first in like 30 years, and I'm a little upset about it.
Ask me when the last time I went to a dentist is.
Okay. Well, hey, listen, oral hygiene.
No, I'm very big on oral hygiene. I'm a very diligent hygiene person because I don't want to go to the dentist because I don't have dental insurance.
Keith, did you know Mysterious Ann sent in a voicemail?
What? Really?
It says this.
Hey, Keith and Mike, it's Mysterious Ann here. Because of your conversation the other week about toyetic cartoons, I found out that my husband can do this.
How's this for a surprise, He-Man?
Thanks, you guys. Keep your butts.
That is also the perfect message.
Keep your butts. It's perfect.
It's on brand. It's delightfully whimsical and sort of non sequitur-esque. Perfect.
And a great impression.
Yes.
See, So, that's awesome. It's also awesome to hear what people sound like.
Yes.
Do we even talk to any of these people?
Keith, but it does bring up the other caveat.
Okay, give me the other caveat.
If and when you send us a voicemail, it does become the sole property of Cayman Enterprises. It may make its way to our soundboard, Keith, because right below sailing now exists...
How's this for a surprise, He-Man?
So, get used to it.
I mean, you know what's great about that? That he is a little Zek in there.
Yes, there's a lot of Zek in there, actually.
There's a lot of Zek in the he. Amazing. All right, so there's your
Keith, you won't be
caveats.
getting any Zek in the he if you don't go to the dentist, right? Sometime soon.
You're not going to get any
How's
Zek
this for a
in the
surprise, He-Man?
I thought that was going to be more like a dating app problem, but now it's dentist. I don't know. All right, YouTube viewer who regrets being a part of this says, I like this episode a lot. Any episode with Aaron Eisenberg in it is automatically above average, at least.
Agreed.
It is also nice that Jake got a lot of screen time for once. This scene is a very interesting contrast to several seasons ago, where Jake and Nog are alone in the runabout, and Nog panicked when a Dominion ship showed up. Here, he was cool and professional. My critiques of this episode are relatively minor. Starfleet should have more non-human extras, in my opinion. This is a problem with pretty much all of 90s Star Trek. Too many humans. The Red Squad had one Vulcan who didn't act like a Vulcan, and a blink if you miss it bit where you see more than one of the cadets has trill spots. I get it's a budget-saving measure to save on makeup and costuming, but it wouldn't kill them to throw in a Bolian.
Bolian!
I wouldn't have minded if they had more of a splash of color among the humans too. YouTube viewer! You and I disagree about almost everything. Water is wet. I couldn't agree with you more on this. Love it. I think that's really smart. Then, and folks, you should actually go in and do this. I didn't have time to read all of it, but YouTube viewer does a great story pitch for Ferengis in Love. Go check it out, folks. It's a good pitch. I'd watch that episode. Anyway, back to Valiant. I like that this episode had a Karen in it almost 20 years before Karen became a slang term. I give this 91 out of 100 delusions of grandeur.
Well done.
Like it. JD says, the couple of times I've heard Jen sing, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I could easily put on an album with her singing. Well, JD, you can. She's on the Fiddler album. Is she on any other cast albums?
Yes, she's on the cast album of, I can get it for you wholesale, the latest revival at Classical Stage. Yes.
Yeah, so multiple.
She also is
albums.
featured on Brian Perry's Few Words. You can actually hear the exact concert Keith and I heard at Carnegie Hall.
Oh, that's true.
It was released. I think Sony Classical released it. So check it out.
Yeah, so you don't have to imagine.
You know what? We'll link all three below.
Yes. Yeah, you're gonna have to do that because I won't remember. JD continues, you guys know the Care Bears did an 8-episode arc based on Star Trek. I plan on making those custom figures at some point. You should look it up at some point. It's fantastic stuff. I did not know that at all. I would show up at Mike's just to play with the dog. Yeah, and I did.
Keith did, yes. She loved you.
Me and Cadet were best friends. It's great. Me and the cats. We had a wonderful time. I had a wonderful time visiting Mike and Jen for WrestleMania. Mike, on his fancy new grill, a very good chef.
Yeah.
Did not know. Let me tell you what Mike gets right. Seasoning.
Yeah.
Mike seasons his food, and that is the number one problem with 90% of people cooking.
Yeah.
Dude knows how to season and sear.
I'll tell you what. I'm actually not a great cook in general, but I've said this many times on the show. My first job for about almost 3 years, I worked at a pizza joint, and I learned how to cook everything on a flat top grill. And so now that's not ostensibly. That's exactly what a griddle is, except those were stainless steel and these are rolled steel, so it's a little different the seasoning process. But so that all transferred. I remembered it all.
Yeah. No, I worked at a sandwich place where I also had a flat top dealie.
Nice.
Doing like eggs and breakfast
zone
kind
cooking,
of things.
yeah.
At that point, it wasn't even zoned. It was like one of those like home ones for your desk, but like
a hot plate scenario,
like a hot plate sort of a scenario. Whatever, I made it work. But yeah, had a blast over at Mike and Jen's.
Yeah, it's fun. Come
good
hang
food,
out.
Good times.
If you're ever in Philadelphia, you know what, dear patrons, viewers, listeners, if you're ever in Philadelphia, give us an email. I'll vet that you're not a psychopath, and you can come over for a burger.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, I should note, I live 45 minutes from Philadelphia, so it's
you realize if I said that, Jillian would come down here and slit my throat live on camera.
Yes, she would. I don't think he's exaggerating in any way.
Nope, not at all.
She would she would turn the camera off first, though.
You know what else I did that was fun this week? I went to opening night of Stranger Things.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, on Broadway.
How was that?
You know what? As a play, I would not like say that it's Tracy Letts. However, as a entertainment, it was so fun. Like that show is gigantic.
I'd like to see it. Although I did read the post review. It was like, I think the title of the review was "This is the worst thing I've ever seen on Broadway."
It's not in any way, shape, or form. There's
a lot of cool stuff I want to see. Dead Outlaw, gotta see it. There's kind of cool stuff.
This special effects, man, holy moly! Like there's all this wire work that I've seen a lot of wire work. Right. I have never seen it this good. I can't see I don't know when they hooked in. I don't know when they hooked out. I don't know how they're capable of doing what they're doing. It's really
that's exciting.
Remarkable.
We both took off the summer for the most part. We have a couple of things, but like big gigs, and I think one of the goals is to see like as much as we can on Broadway this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worth a view. Cool. So that was fun. Anyway, JD is like, is this still my comment? Yes, it is. Says, are you guys familiar with the 5% rule?
Keith talks about this all the time.
Different 5% rule.
Well, you talk about jokes, but
I talk about the 5% jokes, but this is different. When you watch a movie or a show, ask yourself how quickly would the story be over if someone here was just 5% smarter about what they're doing. And this episode is a major victim of this, because the plot relies on a lot of poor choices, most of them falling on Captain Tim and the rest of the people who propped him up on his dumb mission. Which I think is 100% right. And the 5% rule is such a good thing to keep in mind as a writer. Just make sure that it's 10% at least, so that there's a reason for your plot to exist. Other than the writer having a thumb on the brain scale of the characters. We can see that it seems the Valiant had a crew of about 26 when Jake and Nog joined them, and that's how many we see in the scene when he addresses the crew in the galley, and 25 of them died. Yeah, I really do like this one. I also give it 87 self-sealing stem bolts. And lastly, my favorite comment of the week, and I don't like to play favorite with the comments. But our good friend at Vic Rongu just gave us one word: wankers. To which I say, guilty.
Look, I don't love being trolled, but if you're going to do it, be short and sweet to the point.
Be short and sweet to the point. Undeniable. I mean,
That's the second best villain we've had this week.
How's this for a surprise, He-Man?
Just excellent. Mysterious husband.
Oh boy, you're gonna regret that now. All right. Let's enough filibustering. Let's talk about Prophet and Lace, shall we? This aired on May 13th, 1998. The top song, still true. And this, you know what the solution to this song is? Maybe just earmuffs. Giving it a wink. And then you don't have to be too close.
Baby, when we're grinding, I get so excited. You're making it hard for me. But I'm over 40, so only for about 11 seconds.
You know what's amazing? Reduce, reuse, recycle. Because I think it's the fourth week and you've used that joke all 4 weeks.
Listen. Truth is truth.
It doesn't work and you don't remember it, so it's a surprise every time.
I'd rather be grilling.
I'd rather be grilling. All right, the top movie
R.I.P.
was Deep Impact in its second week.
Right, then we make a joke about that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's all coming back to
Deep
me.
Impact, Wide Impact. There it is. Too close. Too soon. Too close. I saw that one in the theaters.
We talked about it last week. It reminded me what it was. Still forget it.
Yeah. Well, I thought it's
the
better than
Armageddon. Yeah, right.
It's the other one. It's the Taya Leone Armageddon movie, which I thought was better. Mike, what was on TV tonight?
Keith, you know there was a show. It was called Two Guys, a Girl, and a what?
Pizza Place.
That's right. And that was a show. The Drew Carey Show, which I was obsessed with. I loved that show because I was always a huge fan of the British Whose Line Is It Anyway, which featured Colin Mockery and Ryan Stiles, who were both on that show at different times. Ryan Stiles was a recurring character. 60 Minutes is still doing its thing. Chicago Hope, Keith, we know about that.
Before it got shut down?
Yes. Did 60 Minutes get shut down?
The executive producer of 60 Minutes just quit because he no longer has journalistic integrity. He no longer has journalistic freedom.
Well, Keith, back in the heyday, CBS aired a show called 60 Minutes 2. It was so free they could do 2.
You're ready to flip the switch and pull the plug on our entire empire when they start scrolling for us, right?
They're already scraping us.
Well, I mean, scraping us, yes, but like when they come, we're kind of the last of the line, but we're on the list.
I know. It was when Spotify is coming and saying, "Hey, you can't play a Christmas jingle by Bing Crosby for 11 seconds." Anyway, in 1983, whenever we made that show was. Anyway, NBC, Third Rock from the Sun, love you, Lithgow. News Radio, Dateline NBC. Probably at this point, Chris Hansen was finding some pervs. Beverly Hills 90210, Party of Five, Star Trek Voyager, which Keith will tell us more about. Prophet and Lace was airing, of course, Seventh Heaven, and Charmed, because Charmed was also a show where witches did things.
Indeed. Well, what was Voyager doing? Let me answer. It was the episode 1 in which Seven is home alone. So yeah, that was fun. Voyager. I'm excited to get to Voyager. Like. Voyager's got it's got a lot of bread in the sandwich. It's got a lot of filler in there, but once you get to the meat, it's pretty good. All right, this was directed, Prophet and Lace was, by Alexander Siddig, doing his second episode after Business as Usual, and after this experience, never directed anything again.
Man, they really gave him a winner, right?
Yeah. This was written. Yeah, there's Alex doing some direction. Ooh, and a nice cardigan.
He's got a nice little Mr. Rogers on.
Yeah, I
when you're that skinny, you need to stay warm.
You need to stay warm. You got to fill yourself out. I don't need that assistance. So this episode, surprisingly, is written by Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Beimler, the big kids working on this episode. So yeah. What do you say we do some trivial trivia, do a little behind the scenes? Now, Keith, waste your time.
With what?
With trivial trivia. Okay. So it is generally accepted amongst most of the writers and cast that the main problem in this episode is that while the writers wrote it as high farce, Alexander Siddig and Armin Shimmerman saw it as a much more serious piece in the tradition of family business, a comic episode with serious undertones. As Shimmerman says of Siddig, he wanted to make it less of a comedy and more of an exploration of the relationship between a bickering mother and son. He tried to push the envelope and take Quark into an area that Quark isn't used to going in. I applauded him for it, although we reshot some of the scenes, like the heart attack, because he had a much darker vision than the writers imagined. Which is already, like, there's so many pieces of this to dissect. And I wonder if time has changed.
Yes, because I saw much more of a meditation on toxic masculinity.
And gender, yeah, and absolutely. And I wonder how much, recording this in 2025,
this colored
like 22 years later, 27 years, Jesus Christ. 27 years later has changed what we're focusing on of the failures here, because like I don't think this is an episode about a mother and son hardly at all.
Barely
I mean,
at all.
They have that scene, but that's not what this episode's about. But that was sort of where they were going with it. Interesting. So this episode received Star Trek 101's Spock's Brain Award for the worst episode of Deep Space Nine. Gonna be curious but where we put it. I'm not sure yet where I'm putting it.
Keith, I have a quick aside.
Yeah.
And by quick, I mean, we'll see.
You've heard the show.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So I wish I could remember the name of the channel and name check it right now, but I'm watching this YouTube channel who's basically taking each year and going through like the best commercials and television shows of that year and such. And 1993 was just on. And I was watching it as white noise, but I saw Avery Brooks, and they were talking about Deep Space Nine had like a premiered or whatnot.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And they said it was critically panned at the time, not panned, critically didn't do well at the time.
I would say it was critically med at the time.
Yeah, but it said has generally become known as the best of all Star Trek TV shows. Is that now? I tend to agree at this point, but is that generally accepted? I thought that this was a diamond in the rough.
Well, it has been a diamond in the rough for most of time. The diamond has been excavated, and I think the Star Trek world is definitely re-examining the diamond. So, I think that there would be people who would argue for next gen, right? Some people would argue for original series, but I think that between Next Gen and Deep Space Nine, in terms of the best Trek series, I bet there would be a pretty healthy debate.
Okay.
I bet it would be like 40-40-20.
So not speaking out of turn then.
No, I don't think so. No. And for me, I feel that way. Like
Well, I know that's why we're doing this television. That's why we're doing this podcast.
I think in terms of the best, I'm probably 60-40 Deep Space Nine.
Next Gen.
But yeah. And, but also like our understanding of it continually re-examined. I mean, like Voyager was dismissed for a very long time. And I think we are in the excavating process of Voyager now.
Well, listen, I'm gonna a little seasoning for our griddle, our podcast griddle here. I can't believe I'm about to admit this to you out loud, but of all the things we've done, Keith, the thing I'm looking forward to least is watching Voyager. I'm sort of like, it's like an eye roll. Do I have to?
Interesting.
Feeling. I mean, I want to do it because of this experience, because I felt similarly when we went into this.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking in my head right now, there's no way this can live up. So we're moving downward.
Okay. Well, all right. So then, yeah. So talk more about that. Tell me like because I'm sure people will be super curious. Like, what is it about Voyager that makes your understanding of it, not having seen any of it, that makes you be like,
well, the McKee, I'm like already sort of hard met on that, and I'm like, is that what this is about? I did meet that Doctor hologram, which was interesting character, but just you've never seemed like you set this up very much as like nothing comes close to Deep Space Nine. So I'm like, well, then why do I want to revisit anything below it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you have your ice cream before dinner, and then you're like, well, why do I want to eat green beans now?
Well, I wouldn't. Okay, so let me just sort of set expectations. It's not green beans.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different flavor of ice cream. A different flavor of ice cream that might not be your absolute number one,
Mm-hmm.
but like, damn if I'm not going to order it sometimes.
All right, so maybe it's not a rocky road, but like, guess what? It's
Oh,
mint chocolate
Rocky
chip,
Road.
baby, or whatever. I'm just making up flavors. Okay.
Those are both terrible. Why?
You don't like a mint
those are the
chocolate
worst.
chip? What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Let's get to the brass tacks here.
All right. Cookie dough's up there.
Okay.
Anything with like caramely butterscotchy kind of a thing.
Okay.
No nuts. I'm not a chocolate. Like, I like chocolate, so like I would eat like a chocolate peanut butter.
The most
like regular
chocolatey
chocolate
thing.
is
Yeah.
no, but the peanut butter is the operative thing in there.
Like a dark chocolate peanut butter.
No, milk chocolate. But so like I'm not a huge chocolate flavored chocolate
Milk
based
chocolate
ice
is for
creams.
5-year-olds. Dark chocolate is for the elevated palate.
You're on a show about Star Trek. What have we done about 5-year-olds?
We always get back to ice cream. It always comes back to candy
We do.
and ice cream.
But I'll tell you what, nine times out of 10, the ice cream I want,
Straight vanilla.
I exactly want. I want a vanilla soft serve off a truck with rainbow sprinkles on a cone.
Hey, that's listen. I'm not gonna fight you there. I'm more of a swirl guy, but I get it.
No.
But I'm with you with cone, soft serve cone with Sprinkies.
Oh man, I would.
We call them Jimmy's here, but
But yeah, it's good, but mine's from Astoria Park, not from Philadelphia. All right. Anyway, that was Ice Cream Corner.
How's this for a surprise, He-Man?
Dude. Great. Mike laughed. He's gonna cut it though.
no, I'll keep it. No, there was a reason. I can't remember what it was though.
Like, there's nothing more fun on the show than Mike losing his ever-loving snot, and he cuts it every time. It's like,
No,
oh, this is the greatest
sometimes I
moment
cut it,
in
but
the
sometimes
entire
also
episode.
like things
But
go
why?
haywire. Sometimes things
Why
go
do you cut
haywire,
it?
like with the audio and whatnot, and I can't fix it, so I have to cut it. Like there are certain things that my OC does not allow.
Yeah, such as the best moments of our show. Anyway,
Keep-
Cecily.
Every moment's the best moment, baby.
No, it's definitively not. Let me be very clear.
I love the filibuster we're doing, so we don't have to get to the meat of this thing. All right.
No, we're doing it. Cecily Adams said this episode, who plays Moogie, Sid wanted to explore how people who love each other really can hurt one another. Quark and Moogie have a very complicated relationship, and they each have access to that place in the other where they can cause hurt, and they both
Yes.
use it. The first time we shot the heart attack scene, it was very dark, and the pace was slow. It was actually disturbing. We wouldn't have played it any differently if we had not been wearing rubber masks. Armin and Siddig really liked it, but when I watched the dailies, I didn't like it.
So this
Even
episode
though,
started as Quark kills Moogie.
no. It wasn't that.
That
It's
like
that it-
right.
The heart attack is played for laughs.
Yes, but
in
what I
this
mean is that
version.
it became such an ugly conversation that she had a heart attack.
Right.
And it was dark.
Which is what happened, but they played it like a Pinter play the first time, and it was like, whoa, that's dark.
Yeah, but okay, it all makes sense what we're saying now, right? Because that type of scene, the setup is okay. That's what this is about. Whereas when it's a
Right.
comical farce beat, it's like okay, that's a thing that happened. Now we move on.
Right. All it is a beat to get us to the meat of the story.
Yeah.
So I don't
It's
know
funny 'cause
why.
I cast it aside almost entirely.
Which
that
is
beat.
what you're supposed to do. They want it to be funny. It's a setup, not the meat of the episode.
So then, who made the decision, right? Because Siddig, as the director, I guess he doesn't have final cut then.
The producer stepped in
Yeah.
and said this has to be funny.
Well, that's why he doesn't direct it again. Let me tell you.
Yeah, there
As
it
somebody who
is.
just directed a piece and was cut off at the knees at almost every turn, I get it.
But to be fair, do you think this episode would have been better with a long, slow, terrible heart attack from Moogie?
No, but I think it would have been better had we focused on that's what this is about.
Oh, 1,000,000 times, of course. So, possibly because Armin Shimmerman felt his character didn't learn anything from his experience as a female, The ending scene with Quark apologizing to Allura, the waitress he harassed in the beginning, was added. I think it's a decent ad. The production. So here's the kicker, which I think was funny. The production staff had high hopes for this episode during its pre-production. Indeed, after Ira Stephen Bear sent the script to Michael Piller, the head honcho, Piller returned it with a memo reading, "This is going to be a classic." So there you go. Our guest stars this week are Henry Gibson as Nilva. Now, did you recognize Henry Gibson? Because we did the practice, and he showed up a couple of times, but he was a much more featured character on Boston Legal as one of the judges, Henry Gibson. But you wouldn't necessarily recognize him. But look him up off screen; you'll see who he is.
Is the guy who plays Zek's henchman? Did he play the other henchman also?
That's a really no. It was somebody else. I'll tell you who in a second. Jeffrey Combs is back as Brunt, Max Grodenchik as Rom, Aaron Eisenberg as Nog, Cecily Adams as Ishka, Chase Masterton as Lita, Tiny Ron as Mehardu, and Sylvain Cecile as Urilash, with a special guest star, of course, Wallace Shawn as Zek. Now, before we get into this, I have an important question for you. Is who out there, what in the world, does not need to be dissected 30 years later from a critical lens because they got it right the first time? Their intentions and their execution were pitch perfect.
I mean, aside from us. Your portrayal of the band leader on the sinking Titanic, I thought was pretty nuanced and on the nose.
Also 30 years ago, and also probably could use
a rewrite, a hefty edit.
Could use an edit. Could use an edit.
Oh, I don't know. What are we talking about?
Mike, let me ask you this. What do I tee up with a long meandering compliment at this moment in the show every single 150 episodes?
Oh, man, that really makes me laugh because I never get it. It's always wrong. All right, ladies and gentlemen, could it be?
Oh my God.
Our patrons, whom we love and adore and deserve so much more than I give them every week. Brian Kilmer-Biersick, Peter Bank, Frank Rinch, Quarks Bar, Jan Ryan Chesley, Andre, Jamie Lubin, Jason Moe, Deborah, Joshua Crone, and Mike. Andrew Hayes, Alan, and the Mysterious Household, and Mr. Mysterious, Worf's Big Ol' Boot Shivs, Charles Babbage, John Kelly, Keith Blank, Harry Podhead, Anton Thies, Carl Fisher, Andrew Gurton, Deborah Scott, Tren, the Chancellor, Jen, the Cadet, Ellie, Brian from that video game drive-by, Nikolay Ivanovich Lobachevsky, Odos Bucket, Lost Emu, Scotty B, Merritt Neath, 86 and Company, YouTube viewer James Hubbard, Hibernation Pod, Miri Holcomb, Rogue Knight, welcome, Aurora, welcome, Lady Beyond the Wall, welcome, JD Makes, Colin Dagan, Chris Mitchell, CRM, Frank Rinch, Pat, Joshua Cronin, and Kevin Miles, Fedora the Explorer, welcome, Aurora, again, Mr. Smokin', Dragon, Smokin', DC, Bolian, For Soup, Lutz Kremer, Engineer Maynard, Jerome A. Gibson, Wyatt Eldridge, Chanel, welcome to the show, Kevin Miles, Laura Morrison, how are you, Ryan Caputo, how you doing, and of course, we have got the Patreon Hall of Famers. You can check them out here. They've given over $100 to the show, and we are eternally grateful to them, and of course, there's so many, we've got a second page. We can't thank you enough. Please be a part of the team. You get all kinds of extra stuff that Keith and I are working on. The movie's coming up. We've got Mike watches Deep Space Nine every week. Sometimes it's streamed. We appreciate you. Patreon.com/KNN.
Okay. Guys, it's time to go to the screening room and watch Prophet and Lace.
And speaking of it, Keith, I would like to take this opportunity, and I know that sometimes we're looking for sponsors, but listen, I do enjoy streaming every week, and it is one of my favorite parts of the week. And so, first of all, Fios, come on, 6 months and you've been down twice already? That's unacceptable. And then past that, NVIDIA, you make billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Just release a driver that works. Thank you.
Yeah, customer service not going to be a thing anymore. All right. Here we go.
Keep your
Oh,
butts.
boy.
Keep your butts.
We begin this episode with Quark trying to extort sex from an employee.
There's a whimsical teaser.
We addressed this in season 1, and Quark has grown so much as a character that he does it again.
No, shout out to this actress who plays that like fine line of I need this job and complete and utter embarrassment and vulnerability and all, just really, it's great. She does Yum's work.
She does. But don't worry. It'll get worse.
Yeah, she will take it back.
Yeah. Then Rom comes in and says, "We've lost contact with Moogie."
I mean, that face right there is how Keith feels.
Yes, that is our face
Yeah.
going into talking about this episode. So they've lost contact with Moogie and everybody on Ferenginar, and they're all afraid the Dominion has invaded. And Rom says, "Think of the terrible repercussions to the Alpha Quadrant if Ferenginar's invaded." And Worf says, "I can't think of any." Then leaves the episode never to return. Zing, racist Worf. Then a Ferengi ship approaches the station. Hooray, Zek and Moogie are alive and have arrived. They meet at the airlock, and we see Moogie on Deep Space Nine for the first time.
Dressed as
And-
She-Ra.
Yeah. And wearing clothes in public. Both of these are unprecedented thus far. And Zek explains what's going on. They've announced a new law allowing a bunch of new rights for females on Ferenginar. They can now wear clothes and participate in business. However, all this new business swamped the markets and crashed the whole system. And now Zek is being deposed and replaced by, of course, Brunt. Grand Nagus Brunt, acting Grand Nagus Brunt. And they have 3 days to prevent Brunt from becoming the permanent Grand Nagus. So at this point, I'm like,
Yeah.
what a great story.
Mhm.
That totally makes sense. It's continuing the sort of Moogie's pushing Zek into a more feminist position. They've made progress here, and it's interesting to see that they were unprepared for the benefits of this progress. So like it crashed the system for a good reason, which is great. But we'll see where it goes from here.
Also,
So
once
now-
again, shout out.
yeah.
Whenever there's a multiple Ferengi aboard the ship, the costuming is
I mean, that's got to be the most fun that they have. It's like, oh, we need a Ferengi female outfit.
I
Go
hope
nuts.
Armin was like, I'm taking all those with me.
That's a good question. I bet he must have taken some of it. Although Paramount's weird like that. You never know.
I know, not all his ears.
Not all, no, because, or at least not all of Renee's ears.
Oh, right.
So in Act 1, they set up shop in Quark's quarters, and Zek explains he has a plan to get himself back in power. We contact every FCA commissioner and invite them to the station for a meeting. And 2, Ishka runs the meeting. And Quark says they'd love that. But Zek says maybe not first, but she'll win them over. Using her vast financial knowledge and keen instinct for profit, she'll prove once and for all that allowing females to wear clothing is the first step towards a healthier and more prosperous Ferengi economy. Okay, great, love it. And using her to prove what they can accomplish. So they're joined by Nog and Lita. Zek, of course, hits on Lita immediately. So Quark, Rom, and Nog start implementing Zek's plan. They get on the phone and start calling business leaders to invite them to the meeting. And out of 432, only one agrees to come. Nilva, the owner of Sluggo Cola. But he's a big fish at least.
I thought that was a fun little montage.
Yeah. I mean, like, other than, Quark's extortion for sex, I'm totally in at this point in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, Zek's flirtatiousness and stuff. I mean, they are clearly
That's Zek. you know.
Yeah, and it's also Ferengis, right? Like, I mean, for better or for worse, they live in a society where like women just got the right to wear clothing. So, you know, it is what it is.
It doesn't bump me at all. Like that is the character we've established. We're not saying that it's a good thing. We're just saying that is how they're depicted.
Yeah, Quark hitting on that girl in the beginning, I could deal with that. The extortion was like a little gross.
Oh, it was, well, that part, I think they do Quark dirty here in a lot of different ways. But like that one specifically, like we've done all of this work to show the growth of Quark. We've seen him changing how he operates. He accepted the Union. He's accepting of his mother. He's already been called out for this, and it got shut down by Sisko in Captive Pursuit, like second or third episode of the series.
Yeah, the reason, well, I mean, yes, all of that, but also it does him dirty a bit because there's kind of a fun beat, could have been a fun beat at the end there, because clearly she's digging on him, and there's been other hints throughout the series that Quark can be kind of a ladies' man, right? So,
sure.
There's no reason, I don't mind him being a flirty flirt, but like the other seedy sort of overtone was ruined any extortion. Yeah, right. It ruined any of the fun flirty we could have had with it.
Yeah, because he's basically saying like, do this or I fire you, and like him being flirty. I'm totally sure. Why that, and like it's a little greasy because he's the boss, but like at least it's not like a direct extortion.
Oh, make it yes. I'm trying. Let me be clear. I'm 100% on board of that was bad. That was gross.
Yes, fair enough.
Yeah.
So, but then of course, in strides Brunt. And when last we saw Brunt, he was rescuing Moogie. But he has repaid everybody by usurping the throne. And he knows that Nilva is coming to the station. And he's here to thwart the plan, sort of. But he's going to allow the meeting. So I'm not entirely sure why Brunt is here, other than just as fun to have Brunt around.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to point that out. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, yes, my only kind of, because when we get to the point where What's Her Bucket, Moogie is not available for the meeting, and he's like, oh, I'm meeting with this other rando person. Even when he finds out that rando person is clearly Quark, he doesn't really do a lot of protest or change. It doesn't affect anything other than being like a false ticking clock. So
he's just sort of here to gloat.
Yes, that's the only thing that clears it.
Like he should be consolidating power on Ferenginar and doing all this instead of just sort of watching while the resistance happens.
Also, it's hard for me to buy. We'll get to this wormhole later, so I'll just plan it now. That, or maybe they did a good job explaining it. I missed it. How they tried to contact all these people who are important in the overall voting for, or however Nagus
business community. Yeah, the Ferengi Society works like ours does today. The president works for a handful of oligarchs and nothing else matters.
So then, if in using your analogy, am I to believe that Sluggo Cola is Elon Musk? Because he wanting to bang Quark changes the whole element of everything?
Yeah, because oligarchs are chaotic and crazy.
Right, but the 130 other ones, they don't get to like want to bang Quark. So this one guy has sway?
Yeah, hold on. Let me wrap my head around that. Yeah, like if it's like Elon or Bezos or something like that, like he has a lot of influence.
I guess so. They don't really focus on that because all they talk about is the ongoing Sluggo Cola joke.
Right, and him trying to hilariously sexually assault Quark. Yeah.
So I think that wormhole stands.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Weirdly, and not a lot of this episode makes any sense. Yeah. Not even the gross stuff. So
the gross stuff is the most confusing. I can't wait. That's the stuff I want to talk about because there's so much I'm confused about.
Yeah, it's. Let's get to it. So later, Ishka comes to talk to Quark in his quarters. She wants to cheer him up and convince him to go back to the bar. He's mad about the new laws, and he knows she made all of this happen. He thinks she's ruined everyone and everything. Again, not sure why he cares so much, but he says, I want my old Nagus back. I want Zek to be the way he used to be before he met you, before you twisted his thinking with your feminine wiles. And Ishka says, before he met me, Zek was a lonely, unhappy man. It's good, which is interesting.
I think there's some latent, I'm not as confused by it. Yes, he's grown by those things, and like we've already had some beats where he had a fight with his mom, so we clearly have pre-established that they have a little tension. And I think a lot of it is that Quark's got some sort of like, I'm supposed to be the man of the family, and when he turns out to his mom, a female of all things, is continually seen and held in such high regard. I think it bruises his ego enough that, and then he still gets asked to clean up the mess every time. So I think there's a lot of conflicting stuff. And I can say for sure, I do get the sort of, because I fall into this trap sometimes. There are those certain people where you know exactly how to push the button, right? And these two do it for each other. So this all rings true a bit, but I guess your question is more like, why is this specific instance so upsetting to him?
Well, it's just like, what? I guess like...
Well, I guess if you got a lot of irons in the fire, and he does, Quark is spinning so many plates behind the scenes, and the only person who can F it up for him generally is Brunt, who has proven that his mission in life is to make Quark's life miserable. You don't want him as Pope.
Well, you don't, and that part I get. But I think this is, I guess, the much bigger concept that I struggle with, right? Because Quark's having trouble with the progressive ideals. Quark is having trouble with equality, right? He's having trouble with another set of people getting equal rights, and I guess because for me, I just have a hard time not understanding why that's a problem. Trying to figure out, all right, what is Quark's angle? And this is true of like all rights, right? Mm-hmm. How does it hurt you? How does it hurt Quark to have women be allowed to participate in business? It's the same thing as any other equal rights out there. Like
yes.
how, like people are talking about like equality as if it's finite, and it's like, how the F does like allowing a trans person to use a bathroom hurt you?
That's not listen, I don't want to argue that. My point though is
yeah, Mike. I
think you're inviting too much into the conversation. It's very reductive for Quark. He likes pie. Right now, he's fighting with all the boys for the pie. Now you're going to invite the girls? There's not enough pie for all of us. That's his thinking. That's it. Long and short.
And that's sort of like the fallacy that pies are finite, as opposed to now you have twice the pie.
Right.
But yes, I mean I struggle with it as a concept. Like
right. Like, but wait for 10 minutes, Keith, when he's all of a sudden like the most progressive. He's right. Like, okay, not only will I wear a dress for this meeting, make me a woman actually. And then I will deal with all of that. And I'm just like, what has happened? Let's get there.
What are the rules of, oh my God. Oh yeah. Okay, here we go. Put that on the soundboard.
Make me a woman. Put that right next to I am Doot.
So, anyway, Ishka says, Zek was a lonely, unhappy man. Quark says, but he was rich. He was the most powerful Ferengi alive. Now what is he, a puppet? And you're the one pulling the strings, making him dance to your evil feminist tune. You're the worst thing that ever happened to him. You're the worst thing that ever happened to me. In fact, you're the worst thing that ever happened to the entire Ferengi alliance.
Honey, what's this from? You made me an iced coffee?
You know, you don't deserve. We none of us.
I slaved over a hot grill this morning for her. I made eggs, I made pancakes and bacon.
I could actually really go for some pancakes and bacon.
Let me tell you, the past 2 days of my life, I have fallen in love with bacon. I had been off bacon, back on bacon. Hi, baby.
Back on bacon.
Back on bacon.
Back on bacon. Okay, well,
and Quark's about to get off bacon, so.
What do you know? Bacon, delicious. So anyway, so this conflict.
If you're a pig watching this, please join us next week.
I played Wilbur in 6th grade.
I'm so sorry, Keith.
It was not good. It's on the Plex.
It is? Is it on my? Can I get to it?
Not on the Plex you have access to.
Damn it.
Certainly not. Anyway. So this conflict escalates until she literally has a heart attack and keels over. And this was the scene that was like played
Her eyes roll up. She goes down.
Oh my god, that's crazy. So, later in the infirmary, we find out she just needed a new heart. But luckily, that's doable these days. She's just going to need a few days of rest and being kept far away from Quark.
Did anybody else notice that, like, Bashir had a heart surgery outfit?
Well, yes, because these are the same heart surgery outfits that we see on Next Gen when Picard's heart gets replaced.
Easter eggy.
Easter eggy, for sure, and savey money-y. But yeah, no, he's got those, and that heart will be an important plot point moving forward. Picard's, not Moogie's. So everyone is mad at Quark, but they can't delay the meeting. Brunt struts in and taunts for no particular reason, but it is... in this scene, I thought I was reminded how remarkably good Combs is at creating such a distinctly different character than Wei Yun. Mm-hmm. Just like...
No, if you hadn't told me that, I would never know.
Never in a million years would you think that they were the same actor. So they search around for an idea. They need a female to run this meeting. A Ferengi female. And instead of maybe going and finding one that are doing so much business on Ferenginar, it crashed the markets. The choice is obvious. Give Quark a sex change. Here we go. So in Act 3, we meet Quark having undergone a transition that is very, very poorly defined. It's clearly not just cosmetic.
Because they discussed the hormone replacement therapy.
Because his internal experience is completely different. They talk about hormones, but the hormones we see are basically just 1950s female vapors.
No, he also got boobies, right?
What? No, other than the cosmetic.
Right,
So,
but
like,
I mean, the
here's-
cosmetic isn't just like a suit, right? They like made it act
No,
because they can do light beam.
Right, which is why... Okay, let's get into the hormones of it all, because this is really my biggest issue with this episode, is not so much that they do a drag episode, but they do it's actually a trans
I mean, not
episode.
actually. It's
Like,
like
it's
exactly, almost.
But what we learn through these magical hormones that change Quark's experience and behavior is what the writers probably unintentionally are saying what makes a woman a woman.
Yes, I think that is the fundamental difference, because they do express it, I would say. Now, hold on. First, let me say, I do think that Armin, his core actor process for this experience he's in, is coming from a place of good intention. I do believe that.
Well, and I think
That's
we should
important.
say we should say at the beginning, I don't think anybody had any bad intention in this at all.
No. And I think that but here's the thing, right? And 97 versus today, I get it. There's a difference. There's a compounding difference about like how much work you should do, right? I think I just read a discussion of a movie, The Accountant 2, actually, about how it gets into the weeds of like racial portrayals and ethnic portrayals, and how much effort based on like decade it felt necessary. Like in the 80s, none, right? And then and now like if you don't make the basic effort, then you're held a little more accountable. Anyway, I think the effort here Armin's making is like, yes, I'm being changed by these hormones. It's affecting my experience, and then expecting like you walk a mile in somebody's shoes. Okay, cool. However, as you mentioned, their definition of the female experience is very much what people say female politicians are like now. I can't vote for a woman because, they're all crazy. They be crazy, right?
It is like the most like Mad Men sexist, horrible like stereotypes that we're playing with here.
And also, let's throw into the mix, I'm going to call it but it's really just bizarre choice, right? cut to Rom has a very kind of astute understanding, more of a grounded, empathetic understanding of like of how females carry themselves. I mean,
Sort of.
I mean, in this picture, right? And so you're like, oh, clearly, cut to we just use Rom, but they don't. And so all it does is add to a side eye from Lita, and then you're like, now that feels offensive, because now she's making a comment on it.
Right, because we're gonna lurch between so many different types of phobias here. But I think, sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
So my thought is that, and so there's a little bit of whiplash, whether you're looking at through today's lens or even that lens. And I think one of the glaring mistakes of the episode is rather than saying, fuck it, we're going for it, let's make some bullet points, let's sketch this all out and be specific, they just excuse everything away with one word. You know what that word is, Keith? They
Hormones.
say, well, no, they say more than hormones in this episode. Confusing, right?
Yeah.
I'm confused. It's confusing. And it is, but that's not a catch-all, right?
Well, I'll tell you why. I was gonna save it for the end, but it's sort of disingenuous to do so. This episode is one of the most black and white, clear examples of why you need a diverse writing room. The fact that it is blazingly clear there are no women on the writing staff on this show right now. Like, there are 0 women, there are 0 people of color, there are 0 people, in the LGBT community. Like, I just don't know that for sure, but like, oh my God, does this writing need a woman's perspective or a trans person's perspective? All of those perspectives, because this, again, intentions are good, but holy shit, is this clueless?
Well, that's the thing, right? You can, I can say, oh, like, I want to understand, right? And I'm open to understand. But then if you don't actually go and figure out what it is or have someone teach you what to understand, you end up, it's just lip service. So you're right. The intention is right here. But this first scene is clearly presented and executed as a sight gag, right? And then they start adding things like Quark, I think they had the Rom beat. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just kind of coming up with this on the moment. I think they had the Rom beat to show that Rom, whatever his understanding or experience or subtle homoerotic tendencies, whatever they're showing there, right, is pre-existing, right?
Right.
Juxtaposed with Quark, who is in the moment just having had this change, right? I think that's what they're trying to use Rom for, kind of. To show that Quark's transition is abrupt and the antithesis of how he normally thinks about women.
Well,
I think.
Yeah, Quark is much more like inherently misogynistic, where Rom is not. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll find lots of different ways of saying it, but like, this episode looks like it was not only not written by anybody female, it's not written by anybody who's ever met a female.
But not even to mention, sorry, we're just doing the whole episode now. The core, because, okay, let me just give away the ghost. For the past 24 hours, I've been really dealing with the fact that I feel like I was feeling like really positive on this episode, and that they like really tried to make a nurtured, like, walk a mile in my shoes type of thing. And then over the past about 5 hours, when I woke up this morning and I was thinking about coming into the episode, I realized that, like, nah, there's a lot that belies that, right? And one of those things is that the core of this is that what will change this whole game is that it's not boys wanting to bang the woman that makes them great at business, right? It's that fundamentally Ishka's really smart, and that's what they want to express. And that's what Quark does do. He's got great marketing skills. He turns this guy...
And yet, what turns it is not the fact that he convinces her of the business. It's because he wants to bang her.
Yes. Which, if you were making a comment on toxic masculinity and all the things I said, then I would be like, all right, but it's not clear that is actually what's happening here, and thusly,
no. The redemption, what saves Ferenginar is not, even if we accept, okay, like it's not Ishka's ideas through Quark. It's the fact that Quark is hot as a woman. Like it's a mess. But that's not even the part that I have the most problem with. So,
well, Zek does want to bang her right here. Like, doesn't even care.
Clearly. Oh yeah. So, Quark's voice, lobes, and posture has changed. He is now super vain and insecure for some reason, because we're just going to note the female characteristics according to this episode include vain, insecure, and over-emotional, all in the first 30 seconds. He's now insecure about his hips. Now he can't remember the facts and figures, and he tries to seduce Zek to avoid learning things. More female characteristics, stupid and seductive.
Okay. I was going to try to make a defense, but I'm feeling bad about that. Because I was just going to say, a lot of those traits that you mentioned are already latent Quark things.
That's not the story they're telling.
Yeah.
Not even close. Then Lita and Rom try to teach him how to walk as a woman, because women walk a certain way.
Well, heels. I guess you see that walk. It's a little RuPaul's Drag Race when they make up the men. It's okay.
So we see Rom.
But that's the question. Like, what is the motivation here? Like, we are establishing here, we had established prior that Ishka was going to woo this guy with her intellect. But now they've changed plans to, we're going to make Quark hot and make him just want to bang her, right? We're establishing that's the motive.
I don't think the motive is to try to seduce this guy, but this guy has to believe that Quark is a woman. So the only way he will believably be a woman is if he's stupid, seductive, vain, insecure, and emotional. Yikes.
So is that and that is further proven, right? Because I'm just trying to think from like the arguing standpoint. I'm playing devil's advocate is what I'm doing. I agree with everything you're saying, but it's not interesting if I just agree. So that is proven, your thesis is proven by the fact that they made this hormonal change. Otherwise you just stick him in a dress.
Right. Well, I guess
the lobes and stuff.
But I think it's worse than that, because I don't think the hormones were put there by the Ferengis to make it believable. I think the writers are saying the hormones are showing the truth of what the female experience is through the male gaze of never having met a woman, apparently.
Right. Yeah, I can't argue that.
So,
Nog will set us straight.
Yeah. But first, Rom demonstrates the walk, and Quark says he's the one who should be wearing the dress. Why me? You're so adorable and complicated. Glad we added some homophobia to the equation. So Zek says,
no, they make it okay, Keith, because Lita looks at him and is like weirded out too. She's confused too. She's like, "You're complicated." I'm kidding. It is bad.
It's bad. So Zek says, "Forget it, Quark. Rom may make a better female than you, but when it comes to business, you're the better Ferengi." And this is actually a very good line. Quark says, "Looks like your stupidity saved you again." And Rom says, "It comes in handy sometimes." And Mac's line reading on that is legit hilarious in this moment. And Zek can't keep his hands off Quark. Nog comes in and says, "Nilva is here early. Quark better start memorizing."
Oh, because he forgot. Because women don't remember.
I mean, to be fair,
but I guess he also just had a surgery.
Well, I don't think he knew her pitch, right? Because that Moogie had a specific pitch. So Quark did have to, learn what the specific angle is. So I'll give him that credit. But his lack of interest in wanting to learn things and deciding to seduce his way out of learning things, that's the problematic part to me. So in Act 4, Nog greets Nilva at the airlock. Nilva is suitably a lunatic and impatient. And when he's told about the second Ferengi female, he heads off immediately to meet her. We head back to Quark, who they've now named Lumba because of his lumbering, and he is practicing. He complains about his earrings, and Rom says no woman is complete without earrings, though as I've not been handing out a lot of free passes in this episode, I will give him a pass because of his Bajoran wife and earrings being part of their religion. But I don't think that's what the intent was. So then in comes Nilva, and he hands out Sluggo Colas, and he meets Quark. And he announces that he's going to have dinner with Lumba. So they sit down together in the bar. The Ferengi waiter neither recognizes Quark, nor is surprised to see a clothed female. Both of which strange.
I would say
that's a wormhole. Although it's possible that Zek pulled him aside and said, hey, look out for this. But that's not addressed. So Nilva says, tell me something.
I 100% recognize that guy now, by the way.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah.
He says, tell me something. Doesn't wearing all those clothes make you feel like a deviant? And Quark says, not really. And you know why? Because under all these clothes, I'm totally naked. Good line. I like thinking about that too. Quark begins the pitch, starting with the idea of selling clothes to females. And it's actually a decent pitch. Nilva says, let me see if I understand. Giving females the right to wear clothes allows them to have pockets. Once they have pockets, they're going to want to fill them with latinum, which means they're going to need jobs. And once they start earning latinum, they're going to want to spend it, which means Ferenginar will be expanding its workforce and its consumer base at the same time. Logic is sound, although I think it's a minor wormhole that, isn't this already happening? Otherwise, what crashed the markets that caused this whole thing?
Yeah, I guess entrepreneurialism.
I don't know, what are they doing? Anyway.
And how long did that take? None of it makes a lot of sense. Although we've seen how quick the markets can tank.
Yeah, we sure have. What are we doing today? Where are we on the roller coaster? On a roller coaster, we're only down 100 and something. All right,
we bounced back because, whatever, who cares?
Whiplash. So, Quark then pitches a new woman version of Sluggo Cola, saying it makes your teeth green. Because once again, women are driven by vanity, as we learn. That's why we have lady pens and lady whatever. So Nilva, however, is enchanted and wants to go get dessert in his quarters. So in Act 5, now it's time for some aggressive, non-consensual chasing around the room. It's Sluggo Weinstein. And Quark is literally forced to hold him off with a chair. Played for laughs. Hilarious sexual assault happening. Yikes. Again, they're going for farce. They're going for a slapstick, Shakespeare comedy pants roll. But yikes.
Almost works better if they just Freaky Friday'd it fully. You know what I mean? Make Ishka and Quark's body, or vice versa, whatever it is. Make Quark inside of Ishka for the,
Freaky Friday would have been a better way to do this, for sure. Then Brunt comes in and outs Quark as Quark. Quark tries to stay in character and kisses Nilva, then flashes him. Oof. Despite Brunt's protests, Nilva says, she's close enough for me. Come, my dear, let's go tell Zek that I'm going to do everything in my power to see that he remains Grand Nagus. But why? Because that's what Lumba wants.
Damn Yankees, great.
So, okay. Later, Odo and Quark discuss. Nilva gave Quark a ring, and for some reason, he's smitten. And Quark says, I've only been male again for 6 hours. My hormones must still be out of balance. My emotions are raging out of control because women can't control their emotions because they have vapors.
You love the vapors, Keith.
Oh my God. Then Quark asks for a hug, which Odo relents to as Quark sobs because of the vapors.
Gotcha. Right, vapors.
The plan worked. Zek will now regain his job as Nagus. Quark and Moogie make up, and Quark says, then you forgive me, Moogie? Of course I do. You may be a lousy son, but you make a wonderful daughter. I hope the experience taught you something. It's made me more compassionate, empathetic, nurturing. I feel like I'm trapped in my worst nightmare. That's funny. Then we finish with the scene that Armin asked for, where he apologizes and takes back his attempt at forcing an employee to do umax on him, despite the fact that it turns out she was up for it for some reason.
Well, that, of all the scenes, Keith, in my opinion, and there's been some weirdly not great scenes, the worst one is this one. Because, right? Because remember this whole time, the devil's advocate Mike has been, the devil on my shoulder has been like, they're trying. Like, see here at the end, he learned, walk a mile in my shoe, all these things. But they completely belie that by having her be into it, which would have worked had they not done the beginning part, right? Because it'd be like, okay, yeah, like just a little empathy, and now she's interested. But instead, they make her into it, and so he's like, what am I saying? F all of that, I'm going to chase tail anyway. Like, that's where we're left with. After all that, his last thing is like, what am I saying? Wait! And you're like, okay, so no? It's all not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that's what happened in the episode.
Uh-huh.
Let us try to wrap our heads around it in everyone's favorite song.
Yeah, which is much more like grounded, I think.
Yeah.
AlamarEmmys, there was more. AlamarEmmys, it's AlamarEmmys time.
You know what I had not clocked was how good the AI was removing my vocals from that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Also, that I tracked the tempo and relative pitch pretty well in my, because I did that Acapulco.
Yeah, yeah.
In my comedy
Acapulco?
voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Best moment.
I have to say,
ended.
I have to say, there's like, what's the actress who who plays Lita?
Chase Masterton.
Chase Masterton. Go back and rewatch what she does in that scene where they're all like after Quark's transformation.
She's having fun.
She's having
a
fun,
blast.
but she's also like kind of commenting on everything that's happening. She does a couple of takes that really just like I think are chef's kiss, and I love that she's like the only actual female. Andrea Martin. Well, not Andrea Martin. Like Andrea Martin's understudy. Definitely he's also in that scene, but
Cecily Adams.
Yeah. There's some moments I actually really love in that last scene before it's, you got to do what's on the page, but I think Armin is trying. There is Quark's turn. There is something there.
He's trying. He really is.
It's sad because I do think at somewhere hidden beneath all of this, there's like an interesting. Had they gone, if you were to rewrite this episode, and I think you could do this, Keith, rewrite this episode, but it's about. It is a comment on toxic masculinity. It is a comment on our overt sexualizing of women for commerce, for entertainment. It is a comment on all those things, I think, and also sort of an exploration of the trans experience in a way. There's some ways to do this. Now, to do it in 45 minutes and never talk about it again does sort of belittle the whole experiment. That is down there in its I think in its DNA somewhere. However, that's also me giving it way too much credit. I think that it is pretty much. So my best moment lies somewhere in Armin's performance. That's the best I can do.
Yeah, Armin's intentions, like Armin's with us, right? Armin is like very much on our team and very much believes the same thing we do and is very much a feminist. It's just, oof. Yeah, for me, I think there's a couple of beats that are funny. I think there's a couple of Rom beats that are really funny. So I'm just gonna give it to Rom and his joy about being left out because he's too stupid.
Yes. So listen, I think that's fair for me to say this. I have a lot of like, I have a collection of friends who often I am the butt of a joke because I like Drag Race, and I often sort of like explore the physicality of Drag Race and sometimes made the butt of a joke. Clearly, jokes rooted in homophobia that I could probably kick back on a bunch. But regardless, I'm comfortable with myself and with so I enjoy Rom's comfortability with
lack of homophobia.
Yeah, whatever the frig he's demonstrating, right? Like he's coming from a place of good, trying to help, and like he ain't got any of that baggage, right? So I do empathize with that. Unfortunately, it's played as for a joke in the episode, which like
it's
a
homophobic way to talk about a non-homophobic character,
right? Whereas now I'm lucky that we live in a place, Keith, and that you and I are in a place in our lives where we can appreciate that about him. But like clearly that's not what the intention was. So I forget where I was going with that, but regardless, yes, that is wonderful. I'm glad we're highlighting it.
Yeah. So there it is.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
You get some stem bolts. Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some stem bolts for you.
All right, so I'm going to just put this up because I do believe, as I mentioned before, Chase really had it nailed here. Her face in that scene is just like, this ain't it. But, and I've come around the full round on the track. Sometimes we often ding an episode for not being for being something, for us wanting it to be something that it wasn't, right? And this is exactly the trap I fell into here. I've read into like so many of the intentions of what it might have been trying, what it could have been trying to do, but this, that. But at the end of the day, right? If you're going out there, Keith, right? You love football. You love football, Keith.
I sure do.
Right? You love Phil Simms, right?
I do.
And the Giants need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so and maybe you went to those. Maybe you went to the open tryouts, Keith.
Yeah.
Right. And like, good for you, buddy. All right. Like that's cool intention, right? However, if
are you saying I wouldn't have a shot? Are you saying I would not benefit?
I'm saying
the New York
that
Football Giants.
The idea of that
skills?
is cool, right? But once you were actually physically destroyed and could no longer work, provide for your family, keep your mortgage going because you were just in a body cast for the rest of your life.
And let me be clear. That's not because of a hit I took. It's because I tried too hard while throwing the ball and
throwing the
exploded.
ball, putting the pants on. My point being is that, like, you don't get the gold star for something you shouldn't have done in the first place. They should have read this episode and been like, nah, it's all right. Or gone so far crazy farce with it that there was no confusion, right? I'm not saying that would have been a higher ranking, but now, like I said, I don't think there was, well, not... The opening scene is really does not help the case for good intention, right? Like it's tough. That's a tough one. But Armin, I do think, tried to give you layers. I think Alexander tried to give you some layers. But what we get with is pretty bad, and not one that I want to revisit. And don't really want to see that custom either, to be honest with you. Custom figure that episode ain't coming. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, not a strong outing. I'm gonna give it. I don't want to go comically low because I think it's executed pretty well. I think there's some laughs, and I think that there's like the Ferengi of it all. Unfortunately, the plot doesn't make a lot of sense either. The whole commerce thing, nothing really makes any sense. It's pretty bad. I give it 20 stem bolts. Yeah, for Armin and Rom's performances.
Yeah. So I've been also trying to roll this episode around in my head because like until I did a podcast about the show, I'd be like, ooh, select all delete.
Yeah.
When I think about this episode. But now I actually I have to think about it and I have to talk about it. I think this episode reminds me a lot of Code of Honor, which is the first season episode of Next Gen that is blazingly racist.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't on purpose. right? It was accidentally blazingly racist on a series with the specific objective of not being racist, of being anti-racist, but they accidentally really stepped on the rake and did something wildly racist. And I think this episode is the same thing, where it is the intention here, right? And the intention of the whole Ferengi arc with Moogie and Zek and Quark is to write a feminist story, to write a story advocating for feminism. And the execution of the feminist story is blazingly anti-feminist. And, so like, I do not in any way doubt the intent of the writing, the acting, the directing of this episode, where there are some things in Star Trek where I'm like, yeah, I actually kind of doubt your bona fides on whether or not you actually, on your treatment of women, on your treatment of, LGBTQ characters. Like, I very much doubt your intent. I do not doubt the intent of anybody who worked on this episode. It's just a really rough and embarrassing swing and a miss. And like, we have all done it.
Yeah.
Lord knows I have done it. Everybody has done it. You put yourself out of, over your skis. Like, I'm from Vermont, right? And Vermont is kind of the perfect example of this, because Vermont is a progressive utopia of people like aggressively progressive, trying so hard to do the right thing, to do the work, to be anti-racist, to be, pro everybody's rights, to be there. In using racism as an example, right? Aggressively, like there are no more Black Lives Matter signs in the world than Vermont. The problem is Vermont is like 98% white.
Right.
And so you have a lot of people with the absolute best of intentions and not a lot of lived experience and knowledge. And it can be pretty, what do the kids call it today? Cringe. It can be pretty cringe in the execution of like these civil rights demonstrations done by exclusively white people. Now, am I glad they're doing it? You're damn right. Are their hearts in the right place? Absolutely. Is it the world a better place because they're trying? Absolutely. Is it kind of cringe because they don't have a lot of knowledge of the experience? Yeah, it sure can be.
There's a clarifying question I have, and I can't answer it, right? But you can.
Yeah.
This is actually an interesting...
Okay.
Here's the true question, because everything we've said about this episode, everything you just said, absolutely true. I stand by it. However, you don't have to like it, but you have to allow for it. Times change. Times are different, right? The question becomes, was it... Because at the end of the day, it's cringe now, and because it's cringe, it can't be funny, and it's trying to be funny. In 1997, when times were different, was this funny? No. Okay, there you go.
This episode, I think, has been reviled since the minute it aired.
Because I'd say you get a lot of points. A lot is forgiven if it was drop down funny.
Yeah,
like the farce.
Funny.
Yeah,
it was never funny. I think the reasons this episode is so eggy and so uncomfortable and so problematic have developed, have changed. Certainly like, there's a lot of storytelling about trans people that can be gleaned from this. And what are they trying to say about that? I don't think they were thinking about that in the slightest. But looking back on it from today's lens, where they were always there, folks. They've always been there, but we are, as a society, much more aware of it. I think we have a different view on it today. But I think the reason this episode is so feminist and anti-feminist all at the same time is because this episode comments on women, not on how society treats women. Which if we did it today, the butt of all of the jokes would be this, how people are underestimating, misunderstanding, and looking down on, invalidating whatever this female character is, whether it's Quark or whether it's Moogie. But what this episode does is it comments on how on how weird women are,
Mhm.
not how weird men are treating women. And that, I think, is where it really falls.
Yeah, and it's actually double bad when you think about it because they've done all this work to make Ferengi look backwards because of the way they treat women.
Right.
And the whole kind of power play that turned that a bit was that Ishka was the woman actually controlling the man, right? Which gave it a lot of agency and power. And they've sort of undid that a bit.
Yeah, and we learned that all of the stereotypes that Ferengis have of women were not true, as proven through Ishka. And now we're playing into all of those untrue negative stereotypes about women in this episode. It's a mess. Everybody, I don't think I need to like belabor it.
Yeah.
But I will restate what I said before. This is why you want a diverse writing.
And they double down because no other women are on the show, are on the episode. You don't see any of our other female cast.
No, and probably because they're like,
yeah, hell no,
not touching that. No way.
Yeah.
So this is why you want a diverse writing staff, even when you're well-intentioned. And having been that well-intentioned white guy who's sometimes made the mistake of not reaching out and getting the first-person perspective as opposed to just feeling like I could put myself into their shoes, with my good intentions and my hard efforts, like it's still not the same thing. So in the end, right, is this the worst episode of Deep Space Nine for me? And it's not. Because I went back and I'm looking at our numbers historically, right? And what are the famous bad ones, right? It's Let He Without Sin. So I gave a 37 to I think on IMDb that is the worst, right?
Refresh my memory on that.
That was the one where they go to Ryza and Worf's all like, again, sort of misogynistic, right? It's sort of the storyteller. I only gave an 18 to because it was boring and bad. That's where O'Brien and Bashir go to Bajor and yell at clouds.
Oh, that was bad. That was a bad.
That was
one.
bad. It was real bad.
What did I give that?
Let me see. I gave it a season one. I gave it an 18. You gave it a 38. Move Along Home. Gave a 21 to you. Gave a 28. I Move Along Home. I don't necessarily think it would be that bad considering. But for me, the worst episode is and always will be Meridian. Because it is both, again, takes a female character, makes her dumb as a box of hammers, but it also
She falls in love, Keith.
God, it was vapors. She had vapors.
She had vapors. And of all the characters, she would never have vapors.
The 300-year-old, hyper-intelligent, she got the vapors. And, I hated that episode. So, Prophet and Lace, for all the ways I think it's problematic, it is deeply problematic. But the intentions were good. So, it's not going to be as bad as Meridian for me. It gets a 22.
Okay, we're pretty right down. So a big question for you. First of all, just as like a comedic engine, of all episodes, this is a no edit, no cut. Like I can put this in the can and hit export, which is hysterical to me. It's just
insane.
Yeah.
We got through that.
Yeah, that's crazy because that never happens. B, big question for you, and this is if you've not watched our other podcasts, bye, take care. This is the deepest of cuts for like OGs.
Okay.
So what's worse, this or Sex, Lies, and Monkeys?
Oh. Sex, Lies, and Monkeys.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think you're right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Wow, which is an episode of The Practice.
Yeah, that wasn't great. Yeah.
That was so bad.
I actually have to watch that review and just see how what that experience was.
I hope we tore it a new one.
And we go back, we're like, man, it's funny.
It's really funny. Yeah. Whew. All right. So in the world, Prophet and Lace gets a 5.8 on IMDb, which makes it the fourth worst episode. So 169 out of 173. Next week, we are talking about Time's Orphan, where we might get a visit from one of your favorite people. So that's going to be fun. Yeah. So we will thank you so much for watching all of this. Definitely interested in everybody's
Yes.
thoughts. People have already sent some thoughts. Like I got some great thoughts from JD already. So leave your comments below. If you want to send it privately, you can look at my Star Trek Toys at gmail.com. If you want to leave a voice review, send it to look at my Star Trek Toys at gmail.com.
Keith,
Under a minute.
do you?
Por favor.
I don't know if you do this, but a quick meeting.
Yeah.
We also do get comments on the watch along posts. Do you scour those?
No,
You should check those out.
probably should.
Yeah, because
Or
those are patrons. I know what people should do, but I'm saying we could do a little of the work.
or you could forward them to me.
Feels like you would just do that research when you're compiling the things. I could forward
I
them to you.
hate doing research. It's the
There's
worst.
got to be a way to have ChatGPT do it for us. Okay, no problem. We can do it.
Anyway, there we
Leave
are.
your comment
So-
wherever. We'll find it.
Yeah, we'll find it. All right, next week, Times Orphan. Thank you so much for watching. Keith and Mike, watch Deep Space Nine.
Cut print.
Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.
How's this for a surprise, He-Man?
This show desperately needs women on the writing staff. The whole point of view of this is just really ugly. This one gets one tire and it should be happy it got that.
Wow. One spare tire.
One, sex, lies, and monkeys. I'm mad at you.
But I'm going to go by the letter of the law, as Linda Hunt did. There were some good performances, and I did have a couple of laughs, although I was speechless at least 3 times. And I'm going to give it a solid 3, which means we meet in the middle at 2 spare tires.
I think that's fair.
Our lowest score ever.
Somebody, please, for the love of God, hire somebody who isn't a white, straight man.
Well, Keith, I think we've established...
Possibly for this
I think we've
podcast.
established today that we are warriors for feminism everywhere.
No, we're just not monsters.